So, having looked at the features of a confined space, the next point we need to look at is the hazards involved in a confined space. There are so many hazards involved in a confined space, and it requires some amount of expertise to be able to identify all of these hazards and get them into control before authorization is given. That is, that permit to work will be given for the work to commence. So, one of the hazards that you will look at for in a confined space is the presence of hazardous atmosphere. Now, when we say presence of hazardous atmosphere, we are looking at either enrichment of gases like oxygen or the depletion of oxygen. Now, these are very technical issues now I must explain here. Oxygen in a confined space can be enriched. And when that happens, and a work such as welding or gas cutting is meant to take place in that place, with the enrichment of oxygen, say above 21% upward, there can be the next thing you could think of happening is explosion and fire. Yes, because you will not have heat when you are welding or doing gas cutting inside that confined space, and there's already excess oxygen, which is the enrichment of oxygen. The next thing to expect will be fire and explosion. This is one difficult problem that we try to avoid in this industry. Another hazardous atmosphere could be that the oxygen now is depleted instead of being enriched. Oxygen, when it is depleted, it becomes difficult to breathe. So in that case, entrants must carry self-contained breathable apparatus to be able to supply them with energy, oxygen, as they go about doing their work in that confined space. And in some other situation, you could actually identify that hazardous energy gases exist, and then you will expel those hazardous gases from the confined space by means of gas purging using inert gas like nitrogen. You expel them out of that place, or you could mechanically improve the ventilation by mechanically sending oxygen into the confined space. This is one reason why we say that before a confined space work begin, a gas test must be done. Gas testing will identify the presence of the various type of oxygen or gases that are available, such as carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, and the rest of them. And then a decision will be taken on how to control them. In most cases, you gas purge. Gas purging means expelling all of them using a non-reactive inert gases like nitrogen to expel them out, or you improve the oxygen in that place by mechanically sending some amount of oxygen into the confined space there. But without an adequate gas testing, you will not be able to identify this hazard. This has led to the death and injury of so many people who work in the confined space without technically realizing that hazardous atmosphere can actually be dangerous for confined space entrants and even their rescuers. Now, another hazard of confined space is fire and explosion. Fire and explosion can occur in a confined space. Yes, because if the space is already enriched and then you are doing a particular work like welding, like I said, it will not only deplete the oxygen in that place, but there could be presence of fire and explosion. Another hazard that you find in a confined space is trapping hazard and engulfment hazard. This is because of the force, the ability of materials to flow to you and bury the person working there. So the free flow of materials or liquid can actually be a very difficult problem for confined space entrant. So all of this hazard has to be identified. Then we also have trip and fall hazard, of course, when materials are not properly managed inside the confined space. Most of these hazards should be identified and taken care of during a confined space work, during the planning stage. It has to be done. Otherwise, a problem will exist. There are other hazards that can be found in a confined space, such as the fall from height, because in most cases you are actually climbing a particular height to get that work done inside that confined space, and the person might fall. We also have shocks and electrocution, especially when you are working on electrical equipment inside the confined space. There are hazards of communication, poor communication with the person working inside the confined space and the rescuer. Now, if all of these are not put in place, there might be problem. That is not all. If communication and emergency response are not properly identified and put in place, it could be a hazard on itself. So we are saying that a good planning should be done in conjunction with strong risk assessment to be able to identify all the hazards in the confined space.